And the breaking news is that the cabinet has approved setting up a commission of inquiry in the Snoopgate case in Gujarat. That's the breaking news that is coming in right now. So the cabinet has finally approved. Obviously, they've been dared to do that by the Gujarat government. The Gujarat government had been claiming that this is a situation where the state government has already formed an inquiry and therefore there shouldn't be another inquiry that should be instituted by the centre. But what has happened since the new revelations have come to light about how it wasn't just Gujarat that this mysterious woman was being snooped at. When she was in Bangalore as well, she was under surveillance by the Gujarat police, and that has ensured that the cabinet takes a decision today that's approved the setting up of a commission of an inquiry in the Snoopgate case. All right, let's go across to Javed Ansari. And Javed, massive political repercussions for this decision.
Well, most certainly it is, and this now means that the judicial commission that was set up by the Gujarat Commission, by the Gujarat government, over and above that, this commission will inquire into these allegations that this lady was being spied upon, that this surveillance was being mounted, that her phones were being tapped illegally. This, they say, is a transgression of the Indian Telegraph Act, and the centre is empowered because most of these, at least some of these phones were tapped even while she was outside the state of Gujarat. This, they say, is a violation of the Indian Telegraph Act, and therefore the centre has acted. I am told that the centre the Law Ministry was actually pretty keen on setting up a commission soon as this news broke out, but the centre decided to go slow on it. Now they appear to have decided that in the wake of these new revelations that they should inquire and set up a commission to inquire into these allegations.
All right, Javed Ansari joining us on the big news that's just coming in. The Union Cabinet has approved setting up a commission of inquiry into Snoopgate case that has been reported from Gujarat. Remember, a website, gulail.com, had come out with the details of telephonic conversations that had taken place between the top IPS officers in the state and the Home Minister of that time, Amit Shah, pertaining to surveillance of a woman in Gujarat. In fact, just very recently, the website had claimed that they had fresh tapes which revealed that this incident of snooping and stalking took place not just in Gujarat, but beyond the borders of the state. Is this why, Javed, that the centre has stepped in now, considering reports have come in that this stalking or surveillance of the woman took place not just in the state of Gujarat, but even outside?
Yes, this has given them fresh ground to act, to order this inquiry, because earlier, like I was saying earlier, yeah, there was more than one view within government and the Congress leadership that they should set up a commission of inquiry. But the government deterred, as a result of which Narendra Modi moved in fast and he set up a commission of inquiry to inquire into these allegations. Now that fresh revelations have come to the fore, this has given the government fresh ground or yet another opportunity, and that's why the centre appears to have seized this opportunity and decided to set up an inquiry commission on its own. Because people at the centre believe that the inquiry commission set up in the state of Gujarat is, they're not very sure with what the verdict will be. They believe that it's an eyewash and that it will exonerate Mr. Narendra Modi.
All right.
And that's why they believe that to get to the bottom of it, they need an independent commission to inquire into allegations.
All right. So a commission of inquiry has now been set up by the centre to look into the charges of snooping. Let me quickly go across to Atir Khan, who I believe has more details. Do we know anything about the terms of reference of this commission of inquiry that has been set up, Atir?
Well, certainly now this inquiry has been set up and it will be carried out by a retired Supreme Court judge. Since it's an interstate inquiry, cutting across Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh and Karnataka. Therefore, though, we know that the nature of inquiry would be certainly the inquiry into the violation of Telegraph Act. But we know that it is being seen political in nature. We know that the Congress is certainly going to welcome this move, but we are yet to evoke a reaction from BJP.
All right, and I just want you to take us through the details of why prima facie it appears to be a case of illegal surveillance, because I believe you need a sanction of the Union Home Secretary, particularly in cases where you are basically putting a surveillance on the phone lines of a person who's traveling across the borders of the state. Was that done in this case?
Well, that is the inquiry which is going to establish whether there was a violation of the Telegraph Act. As to this is also completely unauthorized. Permission from the Union Home Secretary is required in case there is a need for surveillance, and it is done in only extraordinary cases pertaining to national security or which are very, very serious in nature. But in this case, the inquiry will look into whether this kind of conduct was justified or not.
All right, let me go across to Javed Ansari for more on this. We will, of course, get more details of really the terms of reference of this inquiry. A retired Supreme Court judge, perhaps, who will be heading this commission of inquiry. But Javed, politically, what does it mean? It's very significant now that it comes just ahead of elections, which are barely 3 to 4 months away.
Yes, Ruchika, and the sheer timing of it will lend itself to speculation and charges from the BJP. I can predict what the BJP will say. It's absolutely a no-brainer. They're going to say this is the dirty tricks department of the Congress. This is nothing but an act of vendetta on the part of the Congress party. They will say that because the Congress realizes that Mr. Modi has stolen their thunder, that's why they're now, since they can't fight him politically, they're trying to fight him through other means, and they will say this is an attempt to frame Mr. Modi.
All right, so that is the predictable reaction that we're perhaps going to hear from the BJP. But we've heard several people, in fact, even the NGOs who've now come out, rights activists who've raised the questions of how perhaps there was illegal surveillance that was carrying out on the woman in Gujarat. The defense so far of the BJP has been that the person in question has raised no objection to this illegal surveillance, so to speak. All this is being done with some political motive in mind.
Well, indeed, the BJP, that's precisely what the BJP will say. They will say this is a political vendetta. This is an act to try and fix Mr. Narendra Modi and to try and fix Mr. Amit Shah. The political battle is going to heat up even more. The Congress now, this provides some fill-up to the Congress party's campaign, and the Congress will try and go full throttle at Mr. Modi. And you can bet your last penny that Mr. Modi and his associates will return the fire.
Right, and talking about the probe that has been set up, considering the state government had already ordered a probe, and one of the police officers, IPS officers who had faced Modi government and administration's ire had also moved Supreme Court recently, seeking more details of what exactly happened in that period when surveillance was carried out. Questions will also be raised about whether this was actually required of the centre government to have stepped into this domain while the state government was carrying out an inquiry of its own.
Yes, certainly the BJP and others will raise this question, but the government's argument is that since fresh revelations have come to the fore of surveillance and illegal tapping of phones, not just in the state of Gujarat but even outside, this is a violation of the Indian Telegraph Act, and they believe that the government of India, the centre, is empowered to order an inquiry, and that's why they have decided to do so.
And do you see it become a major political flashpoint of sorts between the Congress and the BJP in days to come, considering it directly has a bearing on the party's prime ministerial candidate? Because as is being suggested by the Congress leaders, that the Sahib who's mentioned in these tapes perhaps is Gujarat Chief Minister Narendra Modi himself, though there is nothing that directly links the two.
Ruchika, you don't have to wait for days. This will start today, soon. As this news spreads, I'm sure the BJP's reaction will be, and Mr. Narendra Modi has repeatedly been saying this, that the government, the centre is using the police, it's using other agencies, UB is using the CBI to frame me, to threaten me, to try and, get cases registered against me, and he is going to take this argument forward. Not just Mr. Modi, but a lot of others will come out battling on his behalf, and you can be sure that the Congress and all those opposed to Mr. Modi will say that, look, this is evident. There is enough evidence out there to suggest that Mr. Modi violated that his government at least transgressed the Indian Telegraph Act by illegally tapping the phones of this lady.
All right, and once again the issue of how the centre may be stepping into the state's domain, once again the anti-federal policies of the UPA, as the BJP claims, may come into question, be it the issue of the National Counter-Terrorism Centre or the anti-communal violence bill, and now this commission of inquiry that has been ordered by the centre. The BJP certainly is going to raise that issue.
Best, Ruchika, you are spot on. The BJP will use that. They will use the cover of federalism and to try and take their case forward, to say that after the state had already ordered the inquiry, this was absolutely unnecessary, and this is yet again, they will point out, try and underline the fact that this is yet again a glaring example of the centre's attempt to encroach upon the rights of the states. But be that as it may, legal experts are of the opinion that if there is a violation of the Indian Telegraph Act, there are enough provisions in the statute book for the centre to order an inquiry.
All right, let me also quickly go across to Atir, who I believe will have more details about this Commission of Inquiry that has gotten approval from the Union Cabinet. This is a central Commission of Inquiry that will be set up. Atir, do we know about the time frame? Because if it is a 3-month period, as is the case most of the times, it would mean that the findings of this Commission of Inquiry may come out before the general elections, and that will be very, very significant.
So that is likely to be the case, but since we know that it is an interstate inquiry which will be carried out by a retired Supreme Court judge, it will look into the violations of the Telegraph Act, and clearly during the course of inquiry it will be established whether Narendra Modi will be made out to be a hero or a villain. Certainly the effort is to put him in the dock ahead of elections, but the question is, will it damage or strengthen his reputation? But it will be an in-depth inquiry which will look into the violations, and there will be a lot of documentation which the Supreme Court retired judge team would be looking into. So it will take, we do not know what will be the time frame for this inquiry, but certainly the effort would be to complete it before Lok Sabha elections.
All right, our political editor Javed Ansari is still with us. Javed, I believe you have some more information to share with us at this point.
Yes, Ruchika, the steps that will follow this decision are as follows. Once the cabinet gives its approval, the government will ask either a Supreme Court judge or a sitting judge to head this commission, and this inquiry commission will have unlimited powers to seek documents, to summon officials, and all people concerned, to summon them and cross-examine them. Now this is where the difficulty will arise for some of the Gujarat government officials involved in Snoopgate, because now they will have to appear before an independent probe, probably headed by a retired Supreme Court judge, and he could ask some very inconvenient questions. Not just that, he could ask for all call records, ask for documents, whether prior permission was sought or not, whether proper procedures were followed or not, and this is where the difficulty could arise.
That's right, Javed, and well, we'll have to wait and see what really are the findings of this Commission of Inquiry. But in any case, the fact that the Union Cabinet has now ordered an inquiry into the earlier allegations that surfaced in the tapes that came out. We know the CBI is now in possession of the tapes that Mr. G.L. Singhal had recorded. It in itself is it's some sort of an embarrassment for Mr. Narendra Modi.
Well, indeed it is, and it provides a fillip to all those opposed to Mr. Narendra Modi, especially his political opponents, who will try and go hammer and tongs, and the longer this drags out. And let me hasten to add here, this is the Inquiry Commission has just, they've just taken a decision to set up the Inquiry Commission. This is at a very initial stage. We can't prejudge what the conclusions of this commission could be. They could either acquit or find people guilty. But having said that, be that as it may, till the final decision is arrived upon, it will give both sides a lot of ammunition, and especially those opposed to Modi will use this to try and score points off him.
Right, and what are the basic issues that it throws up? These tapes, these conversations, the authenticity of this is being checked. Of course, the issue has even been taken to the Supreme Court. The basic issue that it throws up is, of course, the misuse of state machinery by the state government, because in these conversations, purportedly, it is the state home minister who has been speaking to the IPS officers, giving them directions as far as surveillance of a woman is concerned. Just take us through the larger issue that lies at the heart of this controversy.
Look, one is what you've already underlined, the fact that state machinery was misused, the fact that the MOS home, Mr. Amit Shah, took more their undue interest. He was personally supervising them, and there are also references to linkages with Sahab, who most people believe is a pseudonym for the Gujarat Chief Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. And there is also the question of the woman's privacy, her right to privacy, her right to freedom of speech. She has every right to meet with, talk to, have dinner with, spend time with a person of her choosing, I mean, whoever she wants to spend time with. Nobody has any business trying to. It's one thing to say that you're protecting somebody. It's quite another thing to tap somebody's telephone, to peep into private conversations, to hound her every door at every step. And these are questions. Once people start deposing before the inquiry commission, there are some unpleasant truths which might tumble out and which could end up embarrassing, at the least, the powers that be.
Absolutely, and not just unpleasant, they also appear to be deeply personal in nature. But the very fact that somebody's personal life was snooped on, surveillance was carried out on a woman, and that too illegally, that in itself has become such a big issue. So in a way, the Congress this time, or the government for that matter, going ahead, forming a commission of inquiry to look into these allegations goes to suggest that no matter how deeply personal these allegations seem to appear, the government will not fight shy of probing them.
Look, as far as the personal nature of the conversations are concerned, both, I'm sure all government agencies and the commission will ensure that nothing of that sort, gets into public domain. But the fact of the matter, but there are other things. Laws have been violated. If these allegations are true, then it would appear that the laws have been violated, that powers have been misused, that somebody's right to privacy has been abused, that official positions have been misused, that permission was not sought before ordering this telephone tapping. There is a Supreme Court judgment after the Amar Singh telephone tapping case which says that you have to take permission from the from the Home Secretary. Was this done? Were relevant authorities kept in the loop? Was written permission taken? All this will have to be presented before the inquiry commission. They will ask for evidence. Mere oral, they will not be merely satisfied by what people say verbally. They will ask for written proof. And if that is forthcoming, well and good. And if it is not, then there will be some very uncomfortable questions that the government of Gujarat will have to answer.
All right, let me go across to Atir Khan also, who's joining us live right now from Delhi. Atir, if you could elaborate on the due processes that were perhaps not followed, or the processes that were laws that were flouted in this alleged surveillance that was carried out on a woman, on which we now going to see a commission of inquiry set up and perhaps a report within the next 3 months.
Well, clearly under the Telegraph Act, you need there's a prerequisite that in case you need to carry out surveillance in the national interest, you have to take permission from the Union Home Secretary. That's the basic requirement, though he delegates certain officers on his behalf as nodal officers. So during the course of inquiry, the retired Supreme Court judge and his team would look into whether the due processes were followed, whether the permission was taken from the nodal officer or the officer which has been delegated on behalf of the Union Home Secretary. Since it will be an interstate inquiry, which will cut across Gujarat, Karnataka and Himachal Pradesh, it'll take a while. We know it came as a resolution in the cabinet in which one of the members raised this point and then said that under the Commission of Inquiry Act 1952, this inquiry should be carried out, and then there was a consensus over this issue. So clearly, after the inquiry will be completed, it will be tabled in both the houses of Parliament, both in Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha, following which there will be discussions on this.
All right, I just want to focus on what this means politically, and our National Affairs editor Javed Ansari is still with us. So far, what we'd heard, Javed, from the BJP spokesperson, some of its leaders, including Arun Jaitley, they had suggested that this issue of snooping that had surfaced was almost a non-issue and it would fade away with time, but that clearly hasn't happened.
Yes, and the BJP and Mr. Modi's political managers will try and give it a spin. They will cite this as yet another example of the Congress party's attempt to try and frame Mr. Modi. They say this is not something new, we've been expecting this. They tried to haul him up in the Ishrat Jahan case, they tried to haul him up in a lot of other cases. Since they failed, now they've come up with this charge that he was illegally tapping phones, and so they will say that this is the handiwork of the Congress party's dirty tricks department, and that's the route that they will follow. They will try and give this a political twist. The Congress party in turn is also has its ammunition ready, and I'm sure I will have a lot of uncomfortable questions that's going to ask Mr. Narendra Modi and his political managers.
Well, it's also coming on a day when we are expecting a ruling on Zakia Jafri's protest petition, where again Mr. Narendra Modi is in the dock. Well, remains to be seen whether a case is actually made out, whether the court, Metropolitan Court in Ahmedabad, thinks that a case is made out and there should be at least a charge sheet in connection with Gulbarg Society massacre against the Chief Minister of Gujarat. But once again, I just want to focus on the probe that was ordered, Javed, by the state government. Clearly, the ambit of that probe would have been just Gujarat. And with the new revelations that came out from the website that released these tapes, it clearly mentioned that the scope of the surveillance, the snooping, it was carried out in other states as well, which is why perhaps it was required that there is a commission mandated by the centre to look into all those charges.
Yes, Ruchika, and now they will ask the Karnataka government, they will also ask the Maharashtra government to try and to furnish them documents whether permission was sought or not. And if permission was sought, then well and good, he will be acquitted. But if it wasn't, then there will be questions and there will be consequences. So therefore, this is a sticky wicket that the BJP, especially the Gujarat government, will find itself in, because if this was not done as people allege it wasn't, then there will be some very uncomfortable questions that they will have to answer.